Hey guys, how are you? It's Sunday, right? I guess. Yeah, so the markets are opening in roughly 2 hours. At least the futures are opening. And therefore, I want you to check out both the flash update on silver and gold here, platinum, palladium, but also the 1 hour long, yes, 1 hour long walkthrough of all the miners that we have been monitoring for more than a year. There are coming, some setups are coming up, but we're just basically taking, looking at where we are we happy with the positions that we have? Because we bought quite many for the past few years, and most of them has done really well. And we are quite happy with that. So, but this video here, we're gonna go through this one here, the sub chart request. And I do this for two reasons, of course. I do this because I want to give you the opportunity to basically what's it called? Have a submission of a stock that we should look at, then we check it out. I give my opinion, so you get that. But also every once in a while we find a gem. There's no gems today per se, like, whoa, this is. But the last one we found was SUP, right? And that was just a masterful setup. When I saw it, I knew exactly straight away that I was very, very, very interested in SUP and bought heavily into it once we got the trigger. We will check it out just briefly here. So yeah, let's do it. We're gonna go through the entire list. We have, I think, 20 something, yeah. I will say this though, two things. A few of them I have covered in the 1 hour long video. So again, check it out there as well. But there is, I think, seven, eight of these guys are the charts are very messy and basically, at least according to my view, how I look at it, is somewhat useless. I wouldn't personally spend much time on it. So good. Before we start SUP, I just want to show you again. To me, it's still a fantastic setup. And yeah, there it is. Right. I think we found it just before the breakout in April. And you can see we went up straight away 50% and it's now stalling here at the big $1 level, which is totally fine. According to me here again, this is just a pause before going higher. Next target is 1.6, but ultimately I expect the golden here to hit a 2 point something, 2.3, and actually beyond later on. I think it's one of the rare setups. Hopefully I'm right, of course, because I have a huge position and it's even bigger now, of course, with the gains we have had. But it ticks every box. And again, that's why I do these, subscriber requests, because if we can find just one per month, it's all worth it. And this is definitely one of them. So hopefully we are correct. Again, it's all a matter of probability. So we could still fail here. I don't expect it, but we could. Um, and be wrong. But for now, yes, we are extremely happy with that position. Good. SVM. I also have a tiny position here. And yeah, overall, I do like SVM here, and I bought a little bit last week when we broke. You can see here are we're coming back a little bit hard here, which in my view is basically like the back test, you can say, of the blue here. Did we get some news? I can't remember if we got any. No, we didn't. So quite a big red weekly candle. Not ideal, but so far I'm not, worried by any means on SVM here. I will still th say this though, since we have seen the high here, if you want to add to it, if we remove that, again, these two just stands out so much now, right? If we do that across. So that is the big one now to get, in my view. Um, So let's see how it does. But I have a position. It's not tiny, but I have a decent sized position, normal position, and I still expect the red here to get hit for the third time. Then we pull back, whatever, and then we go. We are within the overall yellow uptrend here, which is the one we look at, and we are basically waiting for the big red to break, hopefully in the near future on SVM. So. GSVR is a name I cannot pronounce, and a stock chart that is really wild has been, since '07 here. Again, this is just, look at that. Kiss of death. Boom. Game over. Basically there, in July 2008. And you can just see bear flagging, bearish, collapse, collapse, double bottom. Right. That was in 2020. And then we made this funky. I say funky because you don't really see these often, like a broadening structure. And we said, hey, if you can actually buy when we get above the splitter in the middle. We're coming down here for like a stage two confirmation, maybe back testing. So I really like GSVR here. I think it's one of the that is a bit more difficult to get correct. But to me here, this looks like, stage two uptrend fully intact, and any pullback that you can get here is a buy. And again, if you can. You can buy here, but you have to maybe accept a little bit more downside before eventually going higher in the stage two uptrend. The big one, of course, is the upper end of the broadening structure, which is right there. That's, of course, what everyone is looking at, me included, right? When that breaks. If it does, of course, we're sending it way higher. So, but the difficult part of, let's do a little bit of a teaching here. Normally, what we love to have is, compression, right? Where we can see the price starting to form, and then all of a sudden, yeah, then we have the triangle, and then we wait for the breakout, and then we can place the stop, we can enter, we can do. It's very, I wouldn't say easy, but it's not complicated per se. Of course, there are more to it. Of course, there is. But if you have a broadening structure like that, for instance, that means you have expanding volatility. So it's extremely difficult to get it right, compared to if you have compressing volatility. Because if you go to the apex and you break, again, it's very easy to place a stop loss. In here, it's just a lot more difficult. But again, here I do like it here. We have made some higher highs. Looking back a few years, the third weekly should be coming up very soon, if unless we collapse, which I don't expect. But I do believe since we are in the upper, positive area of the wedge, the expanding wedge, that we're gonna somehow get to there. That is my view, even though it's a bit more tricky. OCG is one of the speculative plays, a $100 million market cap company. We have finally had the big long-term 20-year breakage. However, you can see we still have this, if we do it here a bit more correctly there. So depending on, we might have to make the top there, and then we do this again, somewhat something like that. So we're breaking out here, and now we're back testing it. Again, we haven't gained momentum, but I think we get that once we get above 35 cents. Then we have broken this, roughly 5-year sideways wedge pattern, but also the big downtrend. And before we also broke this little bull flag slash, fractal there. So I like it here. Again, if you want to buy a position here, I don't mind, to be honest. It's one of those setups where personally I'm not playing with the stop loss, but I'm adding a little bit every time I see it could be going. So I added there, and I've added here a little bit. So I have a, tiny, tiny position. And I will most likely add once we break there again. And that will probably be my 3 clip. 1, 2, 3. So that gives me a full position of a full tiny position, you can say. The reason is, again, it's a small stock, and we have just been coming down ever since. So unless let's say we get a big fractal setup out here, then we can load up even more because we have momentum coming behind it. So yeah, OCG, I don't mind starting to add in this region here. But again, be careful. Small commodity stocks, again, don't bet the house. Don't go all in, because you will, even if you're correct, you will mess it up, because all of a sudden you have such a big position on a tiny stock. And when it starts to correct 50%, you will sleep badly. It's just a mess. So use a small position, and add a little bit when you start to see some early cracks to the downtrend, which we are seeing here now. One crack here, trying again with a bigger breakout, basically the same high as the recent breakout. That's why I think, that 35 cents is the key breakout level to get through if you look at it horizontally. West, not a stock that I would personally go into, but again, there are some order, and you can see the broadening here, and that's why it's so difficult. It's so difficult to get correct. And I have become very picky here lately for the past 1 year with, taking positions. And funnily enough, cutting down on entries has really boosted my P&L big time. So that is something I will say is a learning lesson for me. Invest less, but when you and wait for the setup. And when you get the thing you're looking at and you want to see, and you are saying this has, you know, almost you will never get 100%, but this fulfills my setup. You know exactly what to do, the targets, when to get out, when to enter. You go big on those instead of trying to hit every single stock that looks a tiny bit bullish. Anywho, the broadening structure is still intact, so it's going down. However, here for the past 1 year, we have made this compression, which is now what is interesting. So if I were to go into the stock here, I would want to wait for the compression to break, but then also the golden. So the aggressive guys start to buy here at like 7.6. And again, if you really want to, again, give it a little bit more, but you are more safe with the investment. Personally, I would wait for 8.3 to be broken roughly. Until then, I don't really, see a lot of things going on in this stock here. And again, remember, I'm very picky now. Dan here, also just the entire view of it here. I don't really have much going into, again, how I try to get into stocks here. However, we do have what seems like a double bottom there. Decent symmetry down the middle. Even that is also not perfect. But since it's a request, right, I'm going to say if you want to get in, I would wait until that trend line breaks, because that's when we, I think, could see some more upside, because the 30 weekly should start to come up there together with price as well, of course. So until then, I really dislike the chart. Um, I do think this with a good probability is the low, because you can see that's the low from 2010, and here again, and here again. But again, I would still wait for this to break out. And even then, I'm like, I want some sort of setup to take me in. So I'm not a fan by any means. And no, there's really nothing for it here. LRA is looking insanely good, but again, I personally wouldn't buy it here. But it's just again, it sounds counterintuitive, but again, you can have a stock that looks incredible and it's just blasting to the upside. But I need a reason to get in. I need some sort of pause consolidation so I know my risk and I know my entry. But yeah, we're basically all-time highs almost, and we have left this blue channel here, a bit of a pullback there, breaking out. So again, if you're long, by all means, keep it so. Um, Again, if you're, I wouldn't say aggressive, but if you are, I think this is going higher. Don't get me wrong. But again, I would have a stop below 1.6 and then just ride this golden uptrend there. Again, this one for me would have been like, okay, this is where we invest, right? So big rally, back test, and during the tariff thing, and climbing higher. So it looks really good, and look for any pullbacks, any reason that you might want to use in order to get in. Yeah, it is in a stage two uptrend, so don't get me wrong. On the weekly time frame, it is climbing up there. COB, Cobalt Blue. Um, Again, back in the day, I really liked these, where you break a downtrend there, but I'm also now later on here has become a little bit more, I wouldn't say hesitant, but I need, a little bit more from time to time just to confirm it. So, but as you can see here, last time we broke this little, let's call it like a wedge, or we broke this 3-year trend line, we actually rallied big time, right? Again, here we have this major downtrend, so there's nothing really fancy going on for now. But again, we have this similar, kind of, where we start to see momentum slow down. So, and we have a wedge there. So if you want to take a position, again, use somewhat of a small position there just to have a starter position. And then if anything happens, you can get in later on. But I think once we start to trade north of roughly, 7 cents, 8 cents, then it starts to look like it wants to actually go higher because you're breaking at least two big trend lines at that point in time. So fair enough, you can take a small position, but again, it is not the place to go all that ballistic. Have I missed something here? Oh, that changes things so much, to be honest. Huh. Okay, as you can see here, okay. This parallel actually changes a lot here because now we are playing that, and you can just see how different it makes all of a sudden. That's the cool thing. I missed it, and then I saw it and like, this is totally different. So yeah, I think once we break here, 7, 8 cents, that's actually quite a good entry. Funny enough, right? How things can change. But remember, it's only 25 million. So again, keep the size small, but yeah. Okay, cool. That is actually quite good if you want a small stock. Um, yeah, nice. APM here looks incredible. Do you buy it up here? You never do. You never ever buy this late into the move. Again, you need some sort of reason to get in. But if you're long, by all means, remain so. But there's nothing entry-wise here. If we get a back test, I would be a buyer at 2.2 any day of the week. Any day of the week. Um, could also see here we might have some, no, we don't. But yeah, any pullback, any flag, looks good, but there's no entry. So that's also okay. Oh, the one that got away. And the funny thing is, I even looked at the stock here when it broke out. Even before I said I want to buy this big time, and I didn't. I don't know why, but I didn't. And I've missed out, on like 100%. But yeah, it looks incredible. Also look at that break, a 10-year trend line breakout from 40, boom, to like 700 in a heartbeat. I haven't done the measure on that, but what we can see here is basically we tagged it here. Again, we're tagging triangle high, fizzling. A lot of times you're doing a tag, you overshoot, you do, a lot of weird stuff there, and then you're blasting higher. Only to come all the way down to backtest basically and breaking out again there in January 2025. At 150, now we are at 300. It looks insanely good. It's trending on the weekly. I would assume the monthly as well. And these are very difficult to get into. So as you can see here, you basically need to buy very tiny continuation patterns, right? You need to buy very tiny continuation. Um, this one could actually set up for an entry right here, looking at it. Yes, yes, yes. This is actually quite good. Let's go down to the daily here because we have a bias. It's up, right? That one was also a pretty good gift, by the way. So we have a bias and it's up. So what we're looking at here is actually a continuation pattern right around there, something like that. So once we break that to the upside, that's when you want to go long again, which should happen at roughly 350, right? So you have to buy these, you have one right here as well. You can see these very short-lived. Again, this is 2 weeks, I know, but in the grand scheme of things, looking at the uptrend, it's just very sharp and, very quick. So you need to buy these breakouts, and you can see here, these are reasons to get in. You might have one there as well. Maybe it's too short, I don't know. Then you had one there, breakout, back test, also a little wind up. And now you are charging up again here. And when we break that, you want to buy um, that stock. The lowest stop loss you should have is below there, by the way. That's the lowest one. So if you buy here, at least at the latest have a stop loss just below 300. But yeah, if you have a position long, don't change it. Let the volatility do whatever, and you just ride it until you don't have a reason to. I think we have an overall uptrend as well that we could draw. Now we're doing this on the fly to check. We have to go to the daily just to get more, be a bit more precise here, maybe. So are we breaking an uptrend there, maybe? Yeah, we've actually broken the uptrend, but that doesn't change my view. Because if you break out sideways within a fractal, that's typically going higher. So I'm still I stand by this call here for that flag to break out and you go along on that. So it looks really good. Here we have a stock RAK, which is Rackla Metals. Small player, I would assume, yeah, 70 million. No, don't. There were something going on there, right? That was most likely your entry, but other than that, it's just it's just a mess, right? So that would have been your entry, 15 cents. But yeah, there's nothing really going on here. Sorry to say for the person who, requested it, but we have to we have to be very picky. And this is just, of course, again, let's say in 2026, if we get a flag there, yeah, sure, by all means. But overall, it's a very messy chart. Tiny stock, so of course you get that. Well, not of course, but high likelihood you get that. Tesla, yes, Tesla. I think we could be in for a major move in Tesla. Major. Um, I think it's hated enough, and even though it's very hated, the stock chart, the pattern looks incredible from a technical point of view. So we're going back here, 2014, yeah, 19, 20, 2021. We haven't seen a touch there, but at least that is confirmed in my book. So I think we could be at a moment, and it might be a little bit of a feeling slash hunch, but nonetheless, again, look at the high we made there in 2021. And then all the way down, we had a little false start there. When we went to what? The triangle high, right? In this case, the all-time high. We overshot. Again, we see that so often. We rarely blast straight through. It happens, but we rarely do. And then we came all the way down for a big backtest, right? Major backtest. Yes, buy there. Um, Once you have a stock that does that and comes down to such an important trend line, that is typically a good place to start to add into that stock. However, if we go to the daily, look at this here. We have a similar one here on a smaller time frame, yes, but we have a similar setup here where we are squeezing like nothing else. And if we can break, we actually have it there. Can you see it? That is if we zoom in, we have the wind up that we're looking at on a smaller time frame. Look at that. It's beautiful. So to me here, once we start to trade north of 350, then we have broken both the blue and the golden. So 350 is somewhere up here. So a bit lower, but you get my idea. 350 to give a round number. And I think we could trigger a move well past and beyond. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, we're in a heavy uptrend and we could see a major move coming, breaking 350. Um, Ideally, right, when we break, we get a little pullback before, because then we can have a stop loss there. So again, play with the stop, of course. Again, let's see how and when we get there. But Tesla starts to look really promising. Of course, this can fail, right? And then we're going to go down here again to like 200, which, by the way, will be like a buying opportunity again. But we have to wait to see which direction it picks. But overall uptrend, long-term uptrend, right? Long-term uptrend. You can call this whatever, but you get the idea, don't you? So Tesla, I have actually some funky thoughts with, and I think that could be. I'm not going to give them. Am I going to give numbers? I don't know. But we could be in for, I don't know, something quite insane. Maybe, maybe. We're not going to sit here and say it's going to go to 2000, but DRS, yeah, trending heavily. But again, uh, this might sound a little harsh, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on charts that, for me at least, there's nothing much, going on right now. So you had a fake start there, and this was your entry. And even then, right, with the 2020, if you played with the stop, you would have get flushed out like everyone else, right? And then we started to trend. So right now, again, look, this is the weekly. So look for these continuations to go in and add to. Maybe here, yeah, and then there. Yes, yes, exactly. Um, that's how you get into to such a massive uptrend. I would assume this is the 3 monthly time frame being in charge. Maybe even it's the 6 monthly time frame being in charge. I have to check the Bollinger Band for that. No, this is insane. So very long-term time frames are in charge, and you need to go to the weekly to imagine going to the weekly time frame to get enough detail to get in. If we multiply that time frame by 2, you get to the 3 quarterly. So yeah, typically we go down to the 2 hourly or the daily to find the entry, but here we are at the weekly. Insane, absolutely insane. Again, to me here, I I wouldn't. Again, it has run so far, and I'm like, where's the risk, right, and the reward? Um, do we have like a safety trend line we could add if you're already long? Yeah, I think we can find something here. I think we can take the low points. Yeah, that is your something like that. At least the low ones is correct. So this is your exit plan. Again, if you anything below that would be devastating. Um, but again, here starting to take some profits maybe. It's so difficult taking profits, but yeah, yeah, that's my thought. Sometimes it's very difficult. QRE, which is an ETF from down under. Um, I really like the idea here. 10-year uptrend, cool. That's the one that is our frame, right? So we are in a long-term uptrend, very good. And now we have this red, almost sideways action here, a bit like a flag, testing the golden. It undershot, but that was tariff, so you got a lot of extra, you know, scared people. I think when this blue here breaks, right, it's a great buying opportunity. And if you want a level, you have these two highs here. So let's say like 7.2, and I think you have a gorgeous entry. And this most likely should go up to here, stall for some time, and then just grind it higher. Dividends, 4%. Perfect. I really like it there. Your safety is the golden here. At least, going on later because if it takes some time again. But at least initially here, the safety is your golden. Hopefully we start to make like an uptrend so we can, get a different view. But yeah, 7.2, 7.3, depending on, but at least up here in that pocket, you have a really good entry. We have a huge flush of liquidity. Yikes, snap back, and you can see what we have here. Head and shoulders, that's the neckline. 7.2, 7.3, yes, by all means, go long. Go long. Ter, oh, we have to zoom out. So very volatile stock here. This is Teradyne, big company. And you have this kind of, excuse me, broadening structure here. Maybe you should adjust that to there, maybe not, but I've done that instead. So 3 on the low side, and this was actually a gorgeous entry. 2027, 2017. What am I saying? 2017 at roughly $20 was really fantastic. You just see the grinding, right? Trying to, and then finally, boom, letting go. And again, here, good lesson, I think, or like, if you want to get in, but you're late, again, don't buy blindly here, even though you would have been correct. It doesn't matter, but don't buy blindly. You wait for the bigger signals, and you would have bought there at 40. Right. Good. Anyway, where are we now? We are basically setting up for a bigger move, right? We hit the triangle high, or at least in this case, all-time high. It's not a triangle high, excuse me, but we're hitting all-time high. A little bit of overperformance, and now we're just fizzling back and forth, right? So you can buy the low side here, or you can wait for a big break up here to buy into roughly 160, and we should have a lot more upside. Again, you're getting the same vibes, don't you? So definitely want to look for here, big company, and we could see a massive surge. If we assume that this is the cup and handle, which I will say is very, very good, could it be that we're going all the way to there? No. Why? Because you have 15 billion, you multiply that by 40. I'm not going to say no, like 100%, but that sounds a bit, maybe a bit much of a hyperbole. So what you do is you take the price instead. So you're getting 100 on top. And what is 100 here roughly? So at least I have to do it from the other breakpoint there. So you're at least getting to, like 250. But even then, this is too small, right? So difficult to do the measure, but definitely once that breaks, we should see more upside, 400 maybe, maybe even more. But the entry is quite clear. 160, depending on how we get there. Beautiful. Beautiful. CHN is Chalice Mining, precious metals. Very well-defined uptrend. I do love that. I like that very much. No issues. And now we're stuck in this range here, right? So you don't do anything until that range is cleared. You start to buy here, maybe even a flush, you buy there. If you want to go long, of course. Or then otherwise you wait for the stage two breakout happen at $2 basically. Right. The 30 weekly here is finally starting to turn, right? So I'm expecting a move to the upside. So anything above $2 on this one here. This is Australian dollars, by the way. So anything above 2, maybe 210. Yeah, by all means. INTR. Look again, a one-liner, yes, but also you're bear flagging here, so it has so much stuff to do before me even considering anything. It needs to negate the bear flag and start to trade north of 130. Until then, I really don't love anything about the stock. ARU, big one-liner in my view, and by one-liner I mean that's basically one line that we need to get above that before I'm interested at this moment in time, right? Of course, we can get a setup that makes us want to snipe it earlier, but the reason is I think it is actually like a big head and shoulder pattern, similar-ish to the RDS, but it looks incredible. So we have a positive bias, and if you're aggressive, I like to be aggressive sometimes. That here, right? You can see that we are trying to break this little weird formation. Also, could that be like a skewed cup and handle? Maybe, maybe. But if you want to be aggressive, you start to buy this one here at 22.5 cents with the expectations of this going there and then breaking the neckline later on. If you want to wait for the big break, right, that happens at roughly 100% higher, even more, like 160. But that's, again, that's when you get the big momentum coming in. But I do like a little snipe right there. We're actually right there at, let's call it 23 cents. We're happy with that. So looks promising, trying to grind out, and get into stage two. NVX here, yeah, a little spassy here the past 18 months. But again, if you really are aggressive, you buy that break. Not a favorite setup by any means or anything like that, but I do believe still that wedge, when it breaks, it doesn't look that bad actually. So when we break that and start to trade north of like that, so roughly 60 cents, maybe a tad higher, try a little bit, go along just, with a small position and you should do well. Then you can add later on when you get the first bigger consolidation. ARM overall, I don't really see much. The one thing that I found was that we basically broke that horizontal level. But even that, we only have a minor snapback here and a high here. If we had a third touch, fine. Then it would have been much more powerful to break this 6.5 here and going higher. But I'm so much in doubt that I'm not even gonna, comment on it. I'm not gonna sit here and give my view if I don't really have anything, to say. CRI downtrend or like a range going a bit down here. As you can see, we have two on top there. So that is the main frame, 15 years. And we actually have a setup here that can take us in. These are the ones that will take us in, right? We love these. The only downside is that the initial move is down. Typically, we want it to be up because then you have momentum, therefore continuation, right? However, if we can start to trade north like let's say breaking out and trade north of like 23, 24 cents, I do think we could grind our way higher. So that would be your entry on this one here. And if that happens, I could see, roughly, oh, excuse me, 0.023 cents. If that breaks out, we could see almost 10 cents here, like 0.08 or something like that. So yeah, wait for that fractal to play out and get in. Hopefully, you get a little boop before you break and you have a stop there, right? So you're getting in, you're going long roughly here, right? And then you have a stop down there, right? Good risk reward 10 to 1. If you believe that we're going to touch it for the third time, pull back and go. What you do again, take at least 50% off here and let the rest hopefully do that. It's a small guy. Remember the rule, keep it small. 2020, Bulkers here from Oslo. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay dividend. You have to check that because almost always does these shippers, whatever, pay dividends. So check that. But very simply, look at the range, right? Sloping up a little bit, and the 1 year breakout is going to happen here very soon. So when you break that and start to trade north of 132 Norwegian kroners, that is, in my view, the start of it will be grindy. I don't expect this to be, "Oi, let's go." It will be grindy because this was really grindy. So I'm expecting this to be grindy. But I do believe we are going to enter stage two above 132 Norwegian kroners. And again, check out the dividend, by the way. Kootenay, big downtrend. Oy, oy, oy. But also here we had an internal breakage right around here. And we're going to keep it, fairly open. And we even said here you can buy it here, right? Because we were finally breaking the downtrend. Small position, and it was a breakout into that high and fizzling. Boring. Breakout, yes, you buy again at 1.05, tagging the same high, getting smoked. This, by the way, is a 20% dilution. That's why you're down, 16%, so that makes sense. So therefore, it's fairly easy to say that that is the moment we start to see upside. 1.55, 1.55 for Kootenay, and we for sure have taken out the two highs there. The downtrend there is broken, fine, but again, we won't get momentum until we break that. And then we're most likely going to go to here like 240 or something. And then hopefully breakout. But this is, struggling way more than other stocks that we have bought. Yeah. ALV? No, I would not. Again, it's 5 million. I guess if you want to, but again, this is other minerals. They are doing rare earth metals. Don't, no, no, don't do much with these guys. Again, there are better options, more safe options, more, better risk reward, better confirmation, all that good stuff. I wouldn't bother with this, to be honest. I wouldn't do that. So sorry for not giving you a clear answer. It just looks, yeah, exactly. I have nothing more. The video went a lot longer than I would have thought, but we gave a lot more detail. And remember, Tesla. I think Tesla, yeah, yeah, Tesla. I think it looks good. Stop loss must be placed and all that, but still, I have a weird feeling that many people are so bearish on Musk, all that good stuff for Tesla, blah, 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 then it's going to surprise people. And it is a stock that is typically heavily, heavily shorted, by the way. So, yeah, look out for that one. Very interesting. Yeah, interesting is the correct word. Have a great day, guys. Cheers and bye.